Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to discuss the hearings that were held at the Massachusetts State House, October 28th, Wednesday, concerning two resolutions on the Article 5 Convention. Actually, there was a few others that were discussed, including a resolution to say no to the Transatlantic Partnership, which was kind of interesting. One resolution was sponsored by a group called Wolfpack and We the People. This is a left-wing organization pushing for an Article 5 Convention. The other resolution was sponsored by Convention of States. And the Wolfpack resolution, by the way, had 80 sponsors.
How many?
80, okay? The Convention of States had about 9, all Republicans. The Wolfpack were all Democrats. Now, this was heard at the Joint Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs. So the 80 sponsors were both senators and members of the House. So there's 200 altogether. But there were 80 co-sponsors on this resolution. Nobody from the Convention of States showed up to testify in behalf of their resolution. So that was kind of good news. That one would have been the more damaging one, the balanced budget amendment proposal, since there's 27 calls around the country already. And as we long contended, a call is a call regardless of what they put in the call, what the resolution reads. But it looks like Congress will pretty much want to match the resolutions before one is called, if one ever is called. Well, the Wolfpack one, their big issue is to do away with this concept of corporate personhood. That's the stated objective, but when you read the resolution, they have other things in mind too. One of them is federal funding of elections. Now you say, well, that will get rid of big government. No, it won't. It would give the government complete control over who the candidates are. So anyway, there were a lot of people on the left side there. There was a We the People group, there were some union people, there were some business people, there was a Harvard professor, not Larry Lessig by the way, and we had our secret weapon Dan McGonigal, an attorney Greg Hession from Western Massachusetts, who really knows this, he's a great attorney, he's a JBS member, Catherine White, who is a constitutional specialist. She teaches a subject on the Constitution. And my colleague Chris Stevens and myself. And also, and I thought, boy, we're really outnumbered here. But guess what? We discovered that there were some people on the left that opposed an Article 5 convention. Now, we always knew that, but I didn't expect to see them. And so we made our case. Catherine White was phenomenal. And I have it on video, our testimony. We were allowed 3 minutes apiece. Well, Greg Hession was the first one, and he was the first one to be against this Wolfpack resolution. And the Harvard professor had just come up. And by the way, when one of the members of the committee used the term runaway and asked about a runaway convention, the Harvard professor said, highly unlikely. He didn't say it was impossible. Now, when you have a client, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, there's reasonable doubt here. So Greg gets up there, he sits down, and he said, I'm going to read Article 5, so even a Harvard professor will understand. And there was when I videotaped it, all of the Wolfpack types, no smiles, they were just rambling, no humor, but around the room there were some smiles, even some of the members of the committee smiled. And so Greg did a good job talking about that, corporations aren't people, but they're made up of people. And this is a First Amendment issue, and about an Article 5 that you can't control it, what have you. The word democracy was thrown out so much. Everybody, democracy, we have to save our democracy, democracy, democracy. Well, Catherine White, and she's petite, she's a little lady, a little taller than you, and very dynamic. And she sits down and she's looking at it, she said, people, I've heard the word democracy. She says, do your homework. We're a republic, not a democracy. So I didn't have to mention that. And right, it was held at Gardner Auditorium. And right behind the committee members is this large seal. And guess what word they used to describe Massachusetts?
Republic.
Ah, yes, exactly, right? So, kind of interesting. So we had Dan McGonigal made some great points. I mentioned, and what I did was I walked up and I had this in my hand, right? And I got a funny look from Mike Rush, who is the member of the chairing the committee. He's actually my state senator. He's sort of a moderately conservative Democrat, a really nice guy. I said, oh, don't worry, this isn't my testimony. It's your homework. So when I spoke, I said, Congress thinks it will control an Article 5, contrary to what And I also mentioned, we weren't trying to bash anybody. We weren't trying to say, oh, these people are awful, as they try to bash us. In fact, one of the Wolfpack guys that testified made reference to us. And when Greg Hession got up there, one of the members of the committee referred to the John Birch site as much maligned. And there was a few smiles. When I got up there, I said my name, that I'm an Army veteran, because it's a Veterans Affairs Committee. And I said I took an oath of office about a half a mile from here at the age of an oath to defend the Constitution when I was 17 years of age. And I'm a constituent of Mike Rush, you know. So I wanted to establish some credentials. And I said, Congress not only thinks it does, they've tried to pass laws. And I pulled this up. I said, so contrary to what these folks say, Congress has every intention of regulating a potential convention, even though it's not passing any laws. And I said, we have no idea how the delegates will be chosen. And one of the arguments they make quite often is that there's no way that 38 states, that's what it takes to ratify anything. And I said, well, first off, they may change the mode of ratification. Congress can do that to conventions, state conventions. So you may not have any vote once you pass these resolutions. And then I make reference to some bad amendments. I said the 16th Amendment is called income tax. That was passed. And I said the 17th Amendment, I said 100 years ago, the states lost power because senators were ambassadors from the state legislators. And it was changed. So yeah, some bad things can happen. And we only had 3 minutes, so you can't say a whole lot in 3 minutes. But what we would do, and there were some people testifying against the in favor of the resolution to say no to the transatlantic partnership. And of course, that's our issue. I knew about that, and we were only allowed to, like, say, 3 minutes and testify. I could have mentioned it, but I wanted to get the Article 5 I thought was more critical. Although I had plenty of copies of the free trade, the special issue, and everybody in the committee got a copy. And as people were testifying, one guy, very polished-looking professor type, he was sitting down there and he was saying, we're going to lose our sovereignty. He sounded like John McManus. So he was in favor of an Article 5 convention. So I went up to him and I gave my business card and the magazine. He said, you're against an Article 5 and the transatlantic? Oh, we got to get together, you know. So I want to just thank Dan and the good people that came. We wish we had more. And one of the guys who testified in favor, he's looking around the room. And he said, where's that John Birch guy? He was talking about Greg Hession. And I put my hand up, and oh, there's 2 of you. Well, you know, 2 against everybody else. Well, there was more than 2. And when I said, there may be a lot of people in favor. And I said, but I think I can convince them to be against it. And I did mention, and all of us mentioned, that we respect their view. We understand why they want one. But this is not their... And then there was a couple, I think they were union types. The guy had a shirt on that said, corporations aren't people. So I'm thinking he's with the Wolfpack and the We the People. And he said that he likes this amendment, you know, to end corporate personhood, but not the process. And he's lucky he was reading our stuff. It wasn't our stuff, but it was... He said the ACLU opposes it. He said Common Cause and a few other groups. So we networked as well. And when by the way, this is a document that's been out of print for a long time.
What's the name
Thanks
of
to
it?
my good friend Mark Affleck down in Pennsylvania. He put this in PDF format for me.
What's the name of
work. And then we made some extra copies. But
Does it have a name?
it mentions some of the organizations.
What's the name of it?
Oh, it's the hearings on the Constitution Committee, the Judiciary, United States Senate, Constitutional Convention Procedures 1979. So if you want a link to it, I can send you a link to it, and you can download it for yourself. I have a few copies of these if you like. So anyway, but it said in here, the NAACP passed a resolution against it. So I made reference to the NAACP, the VFW, the American Legion, the NEA, and I said, I'm not a fan of all these groups, but I said, this is a Veterans Committee, and the VFW had passed a resolution against this. So I think they were listening. I think we made our points. And I know up in Maine we had hearings, and we were overwhelmed there too. And the governor was in favor of the Balanced Budget Amendment CON resolution. And by the way, the word CON in the Constitutional Convention was used all the time. And the Convention of States people say, oh, it's not a CON. Well, tell that to the Wolfpack people. Tell that to the We the People. That's all they said. I might have heard Amendments Convention used once. Well, after I testified, Ryan Clayton, he's the Wolfpack Executive Director. He's the guy that was in Indiana back last, I think it was 2 years ago, when there was a gathering of mostly conservative types in favor of Con. He was there as a journalist for the Young Turks, Cenk Erga, his boss. And there was a group of people, I knew a few of them, who had signs, you know, no Con, stop the Article 5 convention. And a lady was taking a picture on her phone, and he got in the middle of the group and made an obscene gesture. And then he grabbed the camera thinking he deleted it, but he did not. So that's the kind of guy. He's a good-looking guy, he looks good in a suit, and very articulate. So he kind of asked me to come out and talk to him. And he told me that he thought I was an attorney. I said, gee, do I look like an attorney? I said, I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult. Mike Casey's not here, so I can say he's one of our attorneys. And then he said that the article we did was not true, that George Soros is not backing an Article 5 convention, not at all. In fact, he's in favor of one. And I said, well, it's interesting because your Jim Rubens up in New Hampshire, whom I debated on a radio station, accused us of taking money from George Soros to oppose an Article 5 convention. And I said, well, there was a group in Montana. Now, I didn't know the facts at the time of the debate, but I learned the facts a little bit afterwards. At the time of, there was a group in Montana that was a left-wing group that allegedly sent emails to some of the members of the committee hearing the resolution. Here's some questions you should ask, some softball-type questions. This group never showed up at the hearings. No one asked it. I mean, they had no impact whatsoever. I said, if that's the case, they ought to, Soros needs to get his money back, because these people had nothing, they had no impact whatsoever. So then he was very nice, and he's very, he's kind of disarming, and then he got a little, I could see a little tone has changed, and he used some kind of legal term about gross violation and what have you, and he said, there'll be a libel suit, you know. And I said to him, I said, look, I don't want to repeat misinformation, or errors, you know, if that's not the case, that's one thing. And I said, hey, you want a libel suit? I said, go, do what you got to do, guy. And he shook my hand and left. So, and he was very good too. He's a full-time guy. He's traveling around the country, and he was kind of working. You know, after we made our points, he's writing notes to give to one of the other persons. You know, so that's what we do at these hearings. So, but I do hope if there's hearings in the future, if you're available, we'd like to have you out there. You know, as a show of force. So, okay, I want to. And by the way, if you want to learn more about this, jbs.org/Article 5 Convention. You go to our website. There's also a Facebook page called Stop the Constitutional Convention. So. Did you?
We're all set, yeah.
Did you cut?
Oh, let me cut it.